These are the last people we thought would be doing crimes. Let's get right to it, starting with number 6, the mad girlfriend. Serina Wolfe stole her boyfriend's credit card just to leave a $5,000 tip on her breakfast tab. You could probably have guessed why. The New York native was in Florida visiting her boyfriend, Michael Crane, when the couple had a fight about money. Crane and Wolfe had the argument after she asked to use his credit card to buy a flight back to New York, but Crane refused. The little argument must have been pretty significant, though, because Crane put a hold on his credit account, worried that Wolfe would try to use his card anyway. He did quickly lift it, though, probably thinking he was just overreacting. Wolfe then treated herself to breakfast at the Clear Sky Cafe the next morning with his card she somehow nabbed. Although her meal cost $55.37, she decided to leave a $5,000 tip. When Crane noticed the charge on his card, he confronted Wolfe, but she denied using it. So he called his credit card company to report the charge as fraudulent. In response, the credit card company contacted the restaurant to report the charge, but the establishment had already paid out the server, who was going through a hard time after her service dog passed away. So Crane filed a police report where he claimed Wolfe may have been drunk at the time of the transaction and was trying to get back at him. She was arrested on a $2,000 bond. If we had to bet, we're pretty sure they broke up. Number 5, Punting Money. Former soccer star Richard Rufus, who played for Charlton Athletic, scammed friends and family out of millions of dollars in a Ponzi scheme to support his lavish lifestyle. Rufus stole roughly $19 million, but only $9 million ever went to his trading account, where he promised investors huge returns. He used the rest to either pay off other investors and for his own use. Rufus lived in a 5-bedroom house on a private estate, drove a Bentley, and wore a Rolex, all funded with investor money. Rufus portrayed himself as a successful foreign exchange trader who could generate significant profits in the currency markets. The heartless retired athlete targeted his own friends and family, luring them with promises of high interest, low risk investments with 60% returns annually. Rufus presented himself as such an expert on the topic that he had created his own trading style and methodology and said it was those factors that led to his success. He said that his ultimate goal was to create a legacy by helping others become wealthy. Rufus also told potential investors that major financial institutions like Barclays Bank, Coots Bank, and other soccer players had invested with him, but couldn't give details as the information was confidential. Former Chelsea defender Paul Elliott was on the board of Charlton Athletic's charitable trust, which Rufus became an ambassador for after a knee injury forced him into retirement. Elliott ended his own successful soccer career with a similar injury, so the two bonded and became friends. Elliott helped Rufus navigate life after soccer and learned about Rufus's trading methodology a few years into their friendship. It seemed Rufus was an expert in his field, having raised millions for his church and working with other soccer players. While he didn't give Elliott the names of any of his investors, he implied that Elliott would be familiar with them. Over the course of 3 years, Elliott gave Rufus $540,000, and he appeared to make a profit of $40,000 through his investment. But the money didn't come from trading. Rufus paid him out using money from other investors in a classic pyramid scheme move. Construction engineer Vincent Nairn met Rufus when he renovated Rufus's home. The pair became close, and Rufus offered Nairn the opportunity to earn significant money by investing with him. Rufus explained that he spent a lot of time and money on training to be proficient in foreign exchange trading. He had become an expert in trading and made a lot of money for other people and companies. Since Rufus appeared to live a lavish and expensive lifestyle, Nairn was sold on the idea, so why not give it a shot? Nairn gave Rufus about $15,000 with the expectation that he would make roughly $536 a month on his investment. Rufus said the investment could yield roughly $7 million over 12 years and promised he would cover any of Nairn's losses. It sounded like a no-lose situation. But after the investment, Rufus confessed that he didn't have approval from the Financial Services Authority, known as the FSA, but claimed he could still trade while awaiting approval. However, However, his trading accounts were eventually frozen. He told Nairn he couldn't accept any more funds, claiming there were discrepancies with the trades that took place, but never gave any specific details. Rufus insisted Nairn would get his money back as long as he signed a document claiming that Rufus didn't owe him any money, which was certainly not a red flag. Nairn was putting down a new carpet in Rufus's home when the FSA turned up to repossess the property. After a brief trial, Rufus was found guilty of fraud, money laundering, and carrying out a regulated activity without authorization. He got 7.5 years. Rufus fooled a lot of people with his scam, probably after all those years honing his acting skills playing soccer. Number 4. Buy, sell fakes. Senior citizen Mayo Gilbert McNeil ripped off $800,000 from unsuspecting people by selling fake sports cards. Nobody expects to be scammed by a kind-looking old man, which was exactly how McNeil was able to do it. The 82-year-old senior citizen from Colorado lured sports trading enthusiasts through the internet and online selling platforms. He offered an impressive collection of trading cards, such as valuable 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan rookie cards. McNeil told buyers that the cards were graded by a professional authentication company, which they were not, mainly because they weren't real. Over 4 years, McNeil's victims spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying the fake cards, some trading authentic cards for McNeil's fake ones. One victim spent $4,500 for one of the fake Michael Jordan cards, and another sent McNeil 2 authentic Tom Brady football cards in exchange for 2 fake Jordan ones. McNeil's scam operated nationwide until the FBI collaborated with the NYPD to bring him down. Authorities arrested McNeil in Denver and charged him with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He's expected to be arraigned in New York City at a later date. Number 3. The German scam ist efficient, ja? Gerard Bauer allegedly stole money from his company to build a boutique winery farm and horse ranch on his Virginia property. The German national funneled over $4 million from his employer, which is believed to be industrial firm Frenzillet, as he was listed as the firm's U.S. subsidiary. Over 7 years, Bauer used corporate checks to pay for his personal expenses. He created fake invoices to make the transactions appear legitimate and business-related. Bauer took $1.5 million to fund the construction of his private enterprises, Goose Creek Farm and Otium Winery, and his horse ranch based in Purcellville, Virginia. Otium Cellars offers German and Austrian wines, and Bauer also used some of his company's funds to buy hundreds of bottles for the winery. New owners purchased the company a few years later and reimagined it as Otium Winery. Bauer's farm raised and sold Hanoverians, a horse breed that originated in Germany. On top of his business expenses, Bauer spent $146,416 for private school fees at Foxcroft School, a boarding school for girls. He also used $357,683 to pay off his credit card debt. Bauer was indicted on several charges, including mail fraud and embezzlement. He pleaded guilty to the embezzlement charges and faces a maximum of 20 years in prison. He probably should have just offered up the remaining business to his old bosses. If he just started sharing all the profits, he might have gotten away with it. Number 2. Prince Opal? Former high school principal Hilary French made fake expense claims so she could embezzle school funds. French worked at Newcastle High School for Girls, a private school in northern England, where tuition is $18,000 a year. French ran her scam for nearly 2 years. During that time, she submitted a series of expense claims for 65 gift cards from John Lewis, a British luxury department store. French said the gift cards were for gifts for coworkers, rewards for high-performing students, or thank you gifts for guest speakers. She claimed a total of $3,800 in expenses for the cards. Towards the end of her career at the school, she traveled to the city of Bath to support the school's hockey team during a competition. When she returned, French told the school she shared meals with former students who were either studying at Bath University or other nearby colleges and submitted $300 in claims for meal expenses. However, while she did travel to Bath, French didn't spend time with the hockey team or former students. The girls she claimed she spent time with all said they hadn't seen the principal since they graduated. The school found out about the scam when French accused somebody of stealing an expensive coat. She said she ordered a designer coat to be shipped to the school, which was delivered but immediately stolen. It costs around $300, and she submitted a claim for it. However, the police recovered the allegedly stolen item from French's trunk, which they searched after she made the allegations. allegations. She was arrested but denied any wrongdoing in her police interview. In court, she pleaded guilty to 3 counts of fraud. The Girls' Day School Trust, which governs her former employer, released a statement acknowledging her misuse of power. During her trial, the judge condemned her actions, tarnishing her long career as a teacher and role model. While French avoided jail time, she did receive a 6-month sentence, suspended for 1 year, and 150 hours of unpaid work. French also had to pay back a portion of money she stole. And who had that kind of relationship with their school principal where they would bump into you in a college and take you out to dinner? A teacher? Maybe, but a principal? Isn't it usually the kids in trouble all the time that knew the principal? If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here for our past release on people in the church who supposedly wouldn't be doing crime. Number 1. Happy landings. A group of flight attendants moonlighted as escorts and charged wealthy clients thousands of dollars for their services. Voi Tai Han, a flight attendant for Vietnam Airlines, oversaw the operation. She employed the women and negotiated with clients, offering them at the hotel for $1,000 to $3,000 a night. Han recruited attractive flight attendants and sent customers images of them in their uniforms. She contacted some of her former co-workers to offer them extra income during layovers in Vietnam and scouted local models. Han also posted pictures of herself on yachts and staying at luxury destinations around the world on social media. She shared images of herself working as a cabin crew for Vietnamese Airlines, where she welcomed customers and luxury guests. Although she appeared to be a flight attendant who enjoyed a jet-setting lifestyle, law enforcement believed her posts were a ruse to draw other women in to work on her scam. Once clients picked their favorite cabin crew member, they transferred money to Han, who would arrange the meeting between the men and women. Han employed at least 30 women, most of whom were flight attendants. The operation was lucrative, and Han was able to quit her job as a cabin crew member to run the ring full time. Over the course of a few months, she made roughly $42,000. Han charged clients a $290 booking fee plus $991 for a 90-minute session, or $2,972 for an overnight stay. Police raided a luxury hotel in Ho Chi Minh City where they discovered 3 flight attendants and 1 model spending time with different men. Officers arrested the women along with their Madam Han. There has to be a massage parlor joke somewhere in there, but we're not making it. Who are the pastors who absolutely just love the cash? And of course, love donations from their followers. All in the name of God, of course. Let's get started with number 4, Lamar Whitehead. Lamar Whitehead is a Brooklyn-based pastor known for his flashy lifestyle, and he's someone we've covered before. And this is his latest update. Allegedly, Whitehead defrauded his parishioners out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Federal agents arrested Lamar Whitehead, the Leaders of Tomorrow International Church founder, in December 2022. However, this wasn't his first interaction with the law. Whitehead's criminal history began in 2006 with an arrest over an identity theft scam that used the names of people living in Brooklyn and Long Island. At the time, he faced 10 counts of identity theft. He was released early for good behavior from Sing Sing Correctional Facility in 2013. A year later, Whitehead received a cease and desist letter from the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office over his false claims of promoting a collaborative justice initiative with the DA's office that year. In 2016, despite owing $251,000 for an outstanding court judgment over an unpaid personal loan in 2009, Whitehead drove around Brooklyn in a Bentley and Maserati. Whitehead also allegedly scammed $90,000 out of one of his parishioners. The woman was reluctant to hand over her life savings, but trusted him. At the time, she struggled to secure a mortgage with her low credit score, and Whitehead offered to help. As the savings were her only source of income, he promised to pay her $100 a month. but he supposedly only made one payment in January 2021. She wired Whitehead the money, but rather than spend it on her new home, he treated himself to expensive clothes, among other things. When she asked about her new home, Whitehead claimed he'd talked to her after his election campaign for Brooklyn Borough President. Later, Whitehead told her he had no obligation to pay her back and would invest the cash in his own company. She learned he'd used the money to buy a $4.4 million home and sought a $1 million judgment in the scam. Whitehead allegedly had other victims too, including a businessman he extorted out of $5,000 after promising they'd make millions of dollars if he could borrow $50,000. He touted his relationship with New York City Mayor Eric Adams, claiming he could get favors from the New York City government. Adams had supported Whitehead and his ministry since it opened in 2013 and spoke fondly of him at events. His ministry's website had a donate button, despite his claims that the organization didn't solicit funds. In an indictment against Whitehead, there were claims that he threatened at least one victim who only made a payment to the pastor under the instruction of the authorities investigating Whitehead at the time. At the time of his arrest, he told authorities he only had one phone, but had texted one of his victims to contact him on a different phone. As part of his indictment, he had to forfeit every belonging obtained through his offenses. For anything that couldn't be found or obtained, federal agents had permission to seize other items that equaled the value of those belongings. As of December 2022, Whitehead's case is ongoing. He's charged with extortion, wire fraud, and making material false statements. If convicted, he could face a maximum of 65 years in prison. Number 3. The Edwards family. The Edwards family ran a faith-based charity that pledged to teach the Christian faith and be devoted to service. Fall of 2020, they allegedly pulled off a multi-million-dollar fraud when they applied for the COVID relief program created for small businesses and nonprofit organizations. Parents Evan and Mary Jane Edwards and their adult children, Joy and Josh, filed paperwork claiming that the ministry, Aslan International Ministry, handled a monthly payroll of $2.7 million and had 486 employees. After receiving $8 million from the government, the family was on the radar of federal investigators who found inconsistencies in the claims they made in their application. One of the most alarming facts was that the accountant who signed off on the loan suffered from dementia and hadn't worked for the organization in 3 years. Federal investigators visited the ministry's Orlando office but found the doors were locked, and neighboring businesses claimed to have never seen anyone inside. The ministry's website appeared inactive, donation links not working, and blurbs that seemed to have been copied from other religious websites. By the fall of 2020, federal agents were planning on questioning the family when police officers pulled them over for speeding in their Mercedes SUV. All 4 suspects were in the car, and Evan Edwards explained they were on their way to a conference in Texas. Federal agents arrived and searched the vehicle, where it became clear this wasn't an ordinary road trip. Edwards sat with a laser printer on his lap, and in one of the rear passenger seats were 2 clear bags filled with shredded paperwork. Authorities found suitcases filled with financial record, 2 Faraday bags to block any sort of GPS tracking with tablets and laptops inside, a paper shredder, and backpacks filled with external hard drives and USB drives. A Florida federal judge ordered the forfeiture of the $8 million they received from the government, claiming the money was the proceeds from money laundering and bank fraud. Despite this, the family wasn't charged with any crimes. Federal agents gathered information about the family, visiting Aslan International office's deserted headquarters and chasing down Walter Nita, the accountant who supposedly signed Aslan's loan application. Nita's son spoke on his behalf, confirming his father's dementia. The $2.7 million monthly payroll mentioned in the loan application was far from the actual monthly income, which was closer to $5,500. Federal authorities had been watching the Edwards family for some time when they knocked on the Edwards' front door in September 2020, but nobody answered. 9 days later, agents returned with a search warrant to find that the house was empty. The Evans family was pulled that same evening, and authorities took the family into custody. All 4 were charged with filing false immigration documents at the Canadian border when they had originally moved to the U.S. Their forms claimed they'd be working for Walter Nita despite his ailing health. However, those charges were dismissed when a U.S. Customs officer admitted to having misread the interview reports. Nita's son suggested the family could have forged his father's signature on the visa application occasions, but he could have also signed the documents and not remembered. Months after the traffic stop, Edwards and his son returned to their boarded-up family home without his wife or daughter, whose whereabouts unknown. In December 2022, officers arrested Edwards and his son at their Florida home. The arrest came 5 months after an NBC News report brought new attention to their case. Their charges included multiple counts of fraud, and their first court appearances did not go well. Evan Edwards refused to go due to struggles in his health that forced him to be in a wheelchair, and he didn't want to be in a court-holding cell in his chair. Josh Edwards wouldn't answer even the most basic questions asked by the judge in the hearing. The judge ordered the pair to stay in custody pending completing psychiatric and medical exam. There's much of this crazy story we couldn't get into here, so for a deeper dive into the insane details, click the link here. Number 2. Yvonne Hampton Barley. Florida church pastor Yvonne Hampton Barley allegedly used her relationship to exploit an elderly couple to clean out their bank account and steal their home. Yvonne Hampton Barley's 10-year friendship with an elderly, childless couple seemed innocent initially. She was the founder and pastor of True Spirit of Christ Our Redeemer Christian Ministries and spent time with members of her church, including the elderly couple, both of whom were suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. However, family members of the couple were suspicious of Hampton Barley early on and did not approve of her time with them. Their concerns were warranted, as Hampton Barley's time with the couple was more sinister than anybody realized. Over several months, Hampton Barley altered their retirement funding, added her name to the victims' bank accounts, and attempted to cash out their life insurance policy. Hampton Barley would pretend to be the couple's caretaker or daughter, and even added her name to the male victim's bank account. She withdrew roughly $18,000 from their accounts while claiming she had power of attorney. While posing as the couple's friend, Hampton Barley transferred ownership of their home to herself and set herself up as their sole beneficiary so that she would inherit their assets when they died. When the couple's niece, Nadine, discovered Hampton Barley's name on their deed while reviewing their personal affairs, she contacted an attorney. The attorney found that Hampton Barley diverted funds from his client's accounts to her own and cashed out the surrender value of the couple's life insurance policy. While investigating True Spirit of Christ Our Redeemer Christian Ministries further, the church's most recent physical address appears to be a luxury 22-story condo building where one of the church's officers reside. No information about the church could be found outside of the listing in Sunbiz Florida's business registry, where it was listed as a nonprofit. The family's attorney couldn't even confirm if the couple had actually attended the church, if that's where they had met Hampton Barley, or if the church even existed at all. Within days of the arrest, not one member of the church had come forward to defend their pastor. In fact, the family's attorney found unusual, since the pastors often have strong relationships with their parishioners. Family filed a lawsuit against Hampton Barley in the spring of 2020, but ended the litigation as family members didn't want to put the couple through more distress. However, they were able to restore the deed to the couple. Hampton Barley might have dodged the litigation, but Miami-Dade police arrested and criminally charged her with grand theft, organized scheme to defraud, and exploitation of the elderly. Hampton Barley is now awaiting a judge's decision, which could end up including restitution of the stolen money. Number 1. Shepherd Bushiri. Malawi-born Shepherd Bushiri is a Christian preacher many believe to be a prophet with healing powers. Bushiri amassed a substantial following and ran churches from Ghana to South Africa. His followers flocked to listen to his sermons, although some needed more from him than his teachings. Supposedly, Bushiri performed miracles that changed people's lives, with his followers believing he could heal them and improve their lives. Bushiri often spoke about the miracles he'd performed, claiming he'd cured people of HIV, changed the fortunes of those living in poverty, made blind people see, and once walked on air. So, like Chris Angel. Bushiri offered a range of products at the large church complex, the Enlightened Christian Gathering, where he preached. On Sundays, he attracted roughly 40,000 people, all of whom would listen to the prophet's teachings, and some would do some shopping before they left. Bushiri sold merchandise at the stalls around the complex. Some of his products included branded t-shirts, towels, caps, calendars, wristbands, and even miracle oil. Vendors advertised that Bushiri blessed all their merchandise, so everything had healing power. Pfizer must be a little nervous. Bushiri soon amassed impressive wealth, although nobody knew his specific net worth. His fortune allowed him to buy 4 private planes and several hotels. He was also rumored to have been interested in several mines. Allegations of unsafe practices by the preacher were brought to light when congregants had to perform questionable acts to demonstrate their faith, where they ate rats, snakes, and eating grass and drank petroleum. It sounds like Bushiri was starting a fraternity. Despite filling sports stadiums during his services, some people were skeptical of Bushiri. They believed he was extorting those living in poverty who were so desperate to improve their lives they were willing to buy his snake oil with the hopes it would help their situation. While impoverished people sought change by buying his products, Bushiri became one of the wealthiest religious leaders in Africa. South African authorities arrested Bushiri and his wife on fraud and money laundering charges, but the couple skipped bail and fled to Malawi. According to Bushiri, his life was under threat, and the South African authorities didn't offer him protection. He addressed his supporters on social media and told them his decision to skip bail was to save him and his wife lives. After they fled, South Africa quickly issued arrest warrants for skipping bail. The specific way that Bushiri and his wife left the country was unknown. However, one theory was that a syndicate specializing in taking stolen cars from South Africa to Malawi helped sneak them out. The situation threatened to cause diplomatic tension between Malawi and South Africa, especially when a rumor circulated that the couple fled South Africa with Malawi's president Lazarus Chakwera on his presidential jet, although Chakwera's office and South African authorities denied those claims. A Malawi court deemed Bushiri's arrest illegal because it did not pass through the Minister of Homeland Security. In November 2020, Malawian authorities arrested the pastor and his wife when Interpol issued an arrest warrant for the two. However, his troubles in South Africa were far from over, where the government charged him with stealing $6.6 million through money laundering, fraud, theft. They also broke the conditions of their bail by leaving the country. Bushiri spoke to reporters outside the Malawi court, claiming he wasn't celebrating his victory, but a victory of God instead. While talking about justice prevailing, he forgot that South Africa would likely send an extradition request for him and his wife. In response to violating his jail conditions, the South African court seized his residence, although he appeared unfazed by the situation, stating he didn't care about his assets. Fears of Bushiri's release hurting Malawi's relations with South Africa complicated the extradition process. As part of the South African development community, Malawi and South Africa had already promised the protocol on extradition that they would send back fugitives. However, as of early 2022, their extradition case is ongoing. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you think is the biggest scam around today.